Have you ever sat there, staring at your banking app, thinking, wait, am I completely behind for my age or actually doing okay? Like you hit your late 20s, maybe that 30 birthday is creeping up, and suddenly every number in your life feels like some secret test you never studied for. Income, savings, debt, net worth, all of it. And nobody hands you a scoreboard at 29 that says, "Nice job, you're on track." Picture this. It's late, your room's dark, the only light is your phone, and you're scrolling through people you went to school with. One person just bought a house. Another one is on their second international vacation this year. Someone else is flexing a brand new car. Meanwhile, you're like, cool, I'm just over here trying to not overdraft on groceries. If that feels a little too familiar, you're not alone. I probably spend way too much time thinking about money, so you don't have to. Here's the thing that nobody tells you about money at 30. There isn't one magic number that proves you've made it. By 30, your dollars should be split between a few key jobs. Some protecting you, some cleaning up the past, some building your future, and a small slice making life actually feel fun. Once you see it that way, the whole "am I behind" panic starts to chill out, because you can see exactly what to fix first. Most people go into 30 with this unspoken checklist in their head. Own a house, have zero debt, be making six figures, have a fully loaded investment portfolio, and probably a dog that somehow never sheds. That invisible checklist is brutal. It makes you feel like a failure even when you're quietly doing a lot right. So yeah, quick myth bust right up front. You don't need to own a home by 30, you don't need to have everything figured out, and you definitely don't need to be rich. What you do want is direction. You want your money placed in the right order so that every year after 30 gets easier instead of heavier. So let's talk about where your money should be living by 30. Think of it like three main buckets. First, the floor bucket. That's your safety net and basic stability. Second, the future bucket. That's retirement accounts, investing, and buying your freedom years from now. Third, the flex bucket. That's intentional lifestyle spending, travel, hobbies, and fun that you're not guilty about. The exact numbers in each bucket will be different for everyone, but the order and the roles are surprisingly similar. Whether you make $30,000 a year or $100,000. We'll start with the floor bucket, because if that's weak, everything else feels shaky. By 30, the dream version of this is having at least 3 to 6 months of your basic expenses sitting in cash. Somewhere boring and accessible. Not invested, not at risk, just there. If your life costs, say, $2,500 a month to survive, then you're aiming for somewhere around $7,500 to $15,000 parked as an emergency cushion. That's the money that keeps a flat tire from turning into a credit card spiral and keeps a job loss from turning into full-blown panic. Even if you're not there yet, just having your first couple thousand in this bucket changes the way you sleep at night. On top of that cushion, your floor bucket also includes making your monthly bills as boring and predictable as possible. By 30, you want your essentials, rent, utilities, minimum debt payments, groceries, transport to fit inside something like half to maybe 60% of your take-home pay. If your paycheck hits your account and 90% is gone by the next week, your brain is stuck in permanent survival mode. When the floor is too high, there's no room left for future you. So if you're 30 and you've got at least some emergency savings, even 1 or 2 months of expenses, your bills fit inside a reasonable slice of your income. And you're not using credit cards to plug holes every month. That's a much better on-track and signal than some random net worth number. Once that basic floor is there, even if it's imperfect, the next big question at 30 is, how much of my money is still chained to the past? I'm talking about high-interest debt, credit cards, buy now, pay later stuff, personal loans that feel like mini mortgages on your old choices. By 30, your goal is not zero debt forever no matter what. Your goal is to have cleared or be actively attacking any debt that's charging you more interest than you could realistically earn from investing. So credit cards with 15 to 20% interest, those are like financial fires. If you're throwing money into the stock market while a card like that is sitting there laughing at you, that's like trying to save water in a bucket with a giant hole in it. The win at 30 is either having that debt gone or having a clear, aggressive payoff plan that you're actually following. Here's a simple way to picture it. Imagine your monthly take-home income is $4,000. In a healthy setup by around 30, something like $2,000 might go to basics: rent, food, transport, insurance. Maybe $500 is going hard at any remaining high-interest debt until that's gone. Then the rest, $1,500 or so, becomes the flexible part of the plan. Some of that goes toward future you through investing, some toward fun and quality of life. These percentages will shift, but the priority stack stays the same. Floor first, kill the expensive debt, then grow. If your money is skipping straight to fun and investing while the floor and the fires are ignored, that's when 30 feels financially chaotic. Now let's talk about the future bucket, because this is where a lot of people hit 30 and feel behind. You hear things like, you should have 1 full year of salary invested by 30, and if you're nowhere close, it feels hopeless. Look, that rule of thumb is a nice target if you started early and had no big setbacks, but life is not that neat. A more useful way to think about it is this: by 30, you want future you to have at least a real seat at the table. For a lot of people, that looks like having your first 5 figures invested in retirement accounts or index funds. 10,000, 20,000, something in that zone, working quietly in the background. Enough that you can actually see compound interest doing something, not just a few scattered dollars. Here's some back-of-the-napkin math. Let's say you're 30 and you've managed to get 10,000 invested in a broad index fund, and you keep adding $400 a month. If that earns on average around 7 or 8% a year over the long term, you're looking at something like $100,000 by your mid-40s without needing to do anything extreme. Bump that monthly contribution to $600, and the numbers climb even faster. The point is not to promise a specific outcome. Markets are messy. The point is that getting started in your 20s and early 30s buys you decades of time. Even if your amounts feel small right now, the habit itself is what puts you on a different track from most people. Quick pause here. If this is actually calming your brain a bit and giving you a clearer picture of where your money should sit by 30, tap subscribe and maybe like the video so you don't miss the next one. Alright, back to it, because there's a part almost everyone skips. Inside that future bucket, there's an order that makes your money work harder without you needing to be a finance nerd. By 30, the ideal version looks something like this. You've at least grabbed any free money from work, like an employer match on a retirement plan. Even if it's just 3 or 4% of your income, that's literally a built-in raise. After that, you're putting some money into tax-advantaged accounts, retirement accounts that give you a break now or later, and using simple, low-cost index funds, not gambling. If your income is lower, that might be $50 or $100 a month at first. If your income is higher, that might be several hundred or more. Either way, the win by 30 is that investing is no longer an idea you plan to start later. It's a line in your budget the same way rent and groceries are. Now let's zoom out and talk net worth, because that's the number people whisper about but rarely understand. Net worth is just what you own minus what you owe. By 30, you might see people online saying, you should have this exact net worth number. Honestly, that's kind of useless without context. Someone who went to med school and just started their career might technically have a negative net worth in their late 20s because of student loans, but a huge earning engine ahead. Someone else might have a modest positive net worth, but a career that caps out early. A more grounded target is this. By 30, you want your net worth trending clearly positive and growing every year, even if it started below zero. That means your debts are shrinking, your savings and investments are rising, and the line on your personal chart slopes upward instead of flat. Think of your 20s as the decade where you build a financial character, not just a balance. At 22, you might be the I swipe first and check later version of yourself. By 30, the upgraded version knows exactly where the money goes, has a small but real emergency cushion, no longer carries old credit card balances month to month, and has at least dipped a toe into investing. If your net worth at 30 is $10,000, that's not a failure if you started at negative $20,000 and learned to reverse the direction. The real failure would be hitting 30 and still having no idea where your money goes, repeating the same patterns, and letting your future be an afterthought. There's another bucket we need to talk about that people either ignore or abuse: the flex bucket. By 30, your goal is not to live like a robot who never has fun. That just leads to burnout. Then revenge spending. Instead, you want a portion of your money intentionally set aside for life now. That might be meals out, trips, hobbies, gifts, whatever makes your life feel like more than a spreadsheet. The difference between broke splurging and intentional flex spending is simple. With Intentional Flex, the fun money fits inside your plan after you've funded the floor and sent something to future you. It's the dessert, not the whole meal. Here's a simple framework. Let's go back to that $4,000 a month example. Maybe $2,000 is essentials, $800 goes between debt payoff and investing, and $200 to $400 is your flex. You decide ahead of time what it's for, and you let yourself actually enjoy it without guilt. The magic at 30 is when you can say, yeah, I grabbed takeout and went on a weekend trip, and I still hit my savings and investing goals. That's when money starts to feel like a tool instead of a constant argument. Now, emotionally, 30 is interesting because your brain is doing this quiet comparison between where you thought you'd be and where you are. You might have imagined a certain salary, a certain lifestyle, maybe a house, maybe kids, and your actual situation looks very different. That gap can make you either freeze or overreact. Some people panic save, cutting all joy until they snap. Others go, whatever, I'm behind anyway, and spend even more. The healthier move is to use 30 as a checkpoint, not a verdict. You look at your buckets honestly, floor, future, flex, then you adjust the flow of your next few years so those buckets look stronger at 33, 35, 40. It's a course correction, not a moral judgment. There's also this thing called identity lag that hits a lot of people in their late 20s. Your income might have grown, but your brain still thinks like the broke version of you from college. So you either keep underspending in weird areas or overspend to catch up to the lifestyle you think matches your title. By 30, one of the best money moves you can make is sitting down and deciding on purpose what kind of money person you're going to be. Someone who always knows their numbers, someone who saves first and spends the rest, someone who invests automatically and treats debt as a short-term tool, not a long-term roommate. The dollars in your account are just the scoreboard for that identity, not the whole story. Let's get practical for a second and run through a sample by 30 setup. Imagine you bring home $4,000 a month. Your essentials are around $2,000. You've built an emergency fund of, say, $8,000 over the last few years. You've paid off all high-interest cards and just have a reasonable car payment and maybe some student loans at lower rates. You put $400 a month into a retirement account with a simple index fund and another $100 into a taxable investing account or savings for a goal. Then you give yourself $300 for fun and $300 for other goals like travel or big purchases. Is that perfect for everyone? No. But if your money roughly follows that kind of pattern, floor covered, fires out, future funded, fun allowed, you're in a stronger spot than a huge chunk of people your age. Now, what if you're 30 and nowhere near that picture? Maybe you've got less than $1,000 in savings, a pile of card debt, and investing feels like another planet. That doesn't mean you're doomed. It just means your order needs to be ruthless. First, build a tiny emergency fund, even $500 or $1,000, just so every flat tire stops wrecking your month. Then, channel every extra dollar into the highest interest debt while keeping a small amount of joy money so you do not burn out. Once that ugly debt is gone, you redirect the same payment amount into your future bucket. The numbers might be different, but the path is the same. Floor, fires, future, flex. Another thing people overcomplicate at 30 is whether they should own a home by now. Owning a place can be great, but it's not a universal requirement for being on track. If you're renting in a city where buying would stretch you so thin that you have no emergency fund and no investing, that's not a smart trade just to feel grown up. A stronger signal that you're on track is that your housing costs fit comfortably inside your budget, you have a plan for the next few years, and you're not bleeding out on lifestyle just to keep up an image. Buying makes more sense when your floor bucket is solid, you plan to stay put for several years, and you still have room to fund your future bucket. Let's talk about career and income for a second, because where your money sits at 30 is tied to how it flows in. By 30, you don't need your forever career locked in, but you do want to sense that your skills and income are trending up, not stuck. One of the best investments at this age is actually in your earning power. A course, a certification, a side project that grows into a side hustle. When your floor and basic emergency savings are in place, putting some money and time into becoming more valuable in the marketplace pays off for decades. A couple well-chosen moves in your early 30s can shift your income by tens of thousands over the next 10 years, which matters way more than whether your net worth at 30 is $20,000 or $30,000. Emotionally, here's where things really change once your buckets are set up. When you know your floor is stable, emergencies are covered, and future you is getting paid every month, money stops being this constant background alarm. You stop waking up stressed about surprise bills. You stop feeling guilty about every small treat. Decisions get clearer. Instead of, can I afford this right now, your questions become, does this fit the life I'm building? And what's the opportunity cost if I choose this? That mental shift is the real win of having your money in the right places by 30. The numbers matter, but the calm matters more. One contrarian thought I want you to remember. Being behind at 30 doesn't mean you'll be behind forever. What matters is the slope of your line, not your starting point. Some people coast through their 20s with no clue and wake up at 32, fix their buckets, and end up completely fine by 45. Others look great on paper at 30, high income, nice stuff, but never fix the underlying habits and stay stuck in golden handcuffs for decades. If you spend the next 2 to 5 years ruthlessly building a floor, clearing high-interest debt, starting to invest, and nudging your income up, you can compress a ton of progress into a short window. So if you're watching this and